Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the Optimism Show. And today, again, we have Noah Bragg. We're gonna speak about his awesome journey that he had with Stokefire and the things that have been happening in the past year or so. Noah, it's a pleasure to have you again on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. Yeah, glad to be on and just try to share my experience. Hopefully, it can be helpful to others that are following along.
Yeah, and I'm really honestly quite excited about this situation, especially I know you've had some recent announcements and developments about Stokefire and what is happening there. Would love to honestly touch on that, especially about
hmm
taking Stokefire from here, like what is actually the direction it goes, and would love to hear what are your thoughts at the moment before we go into the other things.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, like kind of in I think it was a couple of days ago, I just kind of shared that I haven't been as motivated around Stokefire to work on it and make progress, which is, definitely not what everyone wanted to hear. It's not necessarily where I wanted things to go either, but I just wanted to be kind of transparent with everybody, like where I'm at with the project. Basically, things haven't been going as well with Stokefire over the last maybe 2 months or so. And I was trying lots of things. We're still trying things, but those, it's like you put a lot of effort into something and you kind of still see, like, even though we put that much of effort, we made progress in updating the game, adding new things, but it didn't pan out to where basically like the success from those things didn't happen. So it's kind of like you kind of expect or hope that that would bring growth or things like that. And so when you start to see over and over that not happen, you have to kind of look at your strategy and be like, okay, what's going wrong here? Why isn't this working? And so, yeah, like that's kind of what got me to that place where like I started to not be motivated on it, not work as much on it because it just kind of wasn't starting to make sense. And so I kind of shared there's probably lots of reasons why this happened to Stokefire or, can happen to lots of crypto projects. Um, but one of the reasons that I kind of shared in that post is kind of that the overall market isn't as like interested or into kind of like these smaller, riskier kind of crypto projects right now. And games is definitely one of those. And so I've just kind of seen that as I've been kind of building that, whether it be investors or speculators, that's our core group of people that help make Stokefire run. Like that's what makes the rewards in the game and revenue work to allow the game to kind of exist. It's kind of dependent on some of those kind of people. So when those people leave because the market's not doing well and things like that, it's hard to kind of continue to make something that's working in the crypto space like that. So just kind of some of the challenges that I think can happen. And so yeah, that's kind of what I shared in that. And honestly, the response from that was really great. Like it was, I guess, it's not necessarily what my players and people wanted to hear, but everyone was really kind about it for the most part, which I'm very thankful for. And people seem to be very understanding of the situation, which was just nice to see. Because obviously people could be upset about it. So yeah, that's kind of what played out just a couple of days ago, and yeah, just a little bit of where I'm at with that.
Yeah, but that's definitely a situation that a lot of founders, especially while building a product or building a project, can get into, like really trying all the things that theoretically in the first place should have brought a different kind of result. And even though it still makes sense, the market changes and shifts. And
Yep.
I'm curious, when it comes to the building landscape and when it comes to games like Stokefire, which honestly, like I've been, especially in the beginning, I've been a player of Stokefire and haven't really seen in any other place that those kind of unique mechanics, especially how it was connected with the trading and the rewards and everything. I'm really curious,
hmm
like, what do you think would have to happen for essentially like more unique kind of projects or unique kind of projects like Stokefire to start gaining traction again? Like,
Yeah.
what do you believe are the things that are missing in the place?
Yeah, and that's in some ways the answer is I don't really know, which is kind of why I'm kind of to this place where for me it's almost like I've gone down this road pretty far with Stokefire where I'm kind of to the point where I'm not sure what else I could do to kind of keep Stokefire going or something similar to it going. But I think there's some things, maybe some fundamental things that might have to change. So just to kind of describe, to be more specific, when you think of projects that have like a token and have like a way for basically investors to be a part of something and grow with a project, you would think, and this is kind of what I thought, maybe even in the beginning of Stokefire, is that that creates a project that can stand for a long term. Like you're creating a community of people that have incentives to all help this project grow. They want to see it succeed, and that's like kind of an awesome thing. And that is definitely something that you see in crypto, which is pretty cool, like incentivizing people towards similar goals. But on the flip side, I think what it has ended up becoming in a lot of cases is kind of it makes the project be more shorter term, especially when maybe things aren't going well in the market. So then investors kind of become more like short term traders where they're like jumping in and out from thing to thing. And they're kind of going from this hyped thing to the next hyped thing, which kind of is then like it's kind of the opposite of what I was kind of thinking in the beginning. Like it kind of becomes this place where it's actually really hard to build something that's long term. And so then all of the builders are kind of incentivized to start building short term projects, and build something that doesn't last long. It's just kind of something that has hype for a couple weeks, get some traction, and then goes away. And it's kind of like we've created this kind of state in the crypto kind of new building space of like builders kind of building for shorter term and investors and traders kind of expecting that shorter term, which then just doesn't allow for things to kind of really blossom and grow. And so that's how I kind of feel like a lot of crypto is at maybe right now. Obviously, I think there are some projects that are able to get through that. They're able to kind of blast through that short term. And that's what I was hoping to do with Stokefire. But, the vast majority of projects that doesn't happen. And in some ways, I guess that's expected. Like if you talk about the normal startups in tech, they kind of talk about like 9 out of 10 startups fail. Well, most crypto projects, they really are like a startup. They're just trying this out, and it's just different where anybody, like the public, not just VCs and investors, can invest in it in the early days. So in some ways, even though we have like anyone can invest in stuff, there's still that 9 out of 10 ratio where we should kind of expect most things to fail, I guess, for the long term at least. The only other thought I have that could maybe change this around is if we see some more positive regulation, some different stuff coming on, maybe going on in the US that allows tokens to basically like legally be more like a security. Maybe if there was some flip or some change like that, maybe that would be the catalyst that would allow for some of these smaller, crypto projects experimenting. Maybe that would allow them to last longer term and kind of
Well,
build for the longer term. So that's the only maybe idea I have that could maybe flip this. But that's kind of, yeah, how I'm thinking about things.
one question over there, like, can you please elaborate more on how do you envision it that it could work if some of those regulations change and tokens can move more towards securities? Like, how can that have an impact on the builders? Is it mostly like from the influx of money or some kind of a different thing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know exactly how it would play out, but maybe it's just that there's only so many investors and people willing to kind of play in this kind of game that's a little gray, right? Like there's a little like unknown of how this is supposed to legally turn out or whatever. So maybe if there's really positive regulation around it, maybe like some bigger institutions or people that have more capital are then like, all right, I'm willing to go jump over there and play in that area and invest in those things because now it's like very clear that it's allowed now. So I don't know. I think that's maybe what it could be like, but I'm not sure.
But taking a bit of a tangent and going back to Stokefire here, would love to hear about because Stokefire started eventually as an experiment, if I'm not wrong.
Right.
And I would assume like in this past 9, 10 months as Stokefire was running, you also ran quite a few experiments either to get users or to incentivize trading and also developing different features for the game as well. Would love to
Hmm.
hear like from your perspective, like what have been the things so far that has worked for Stokefire, what hasn't maybe worked, And also, what are the things that a lot of founders don't consider that they should when building in crypto?
Okay. Let's see. So there's probably lots of different parts I could bring up maybe. I mean, so I think things that worked, like kind of going back to the very beginning, there was maybe 2 or 3 months there where I was building Stokefire kind of like under the radar. And I just had a group of like 20 players. And this was even before like we launched the Fire token and stuff like that. Like no one was expecting that. And kind of the main goal during that whole time was like focusing on making a fun like game experience. I think that should always be the focus of like how do you make a fun experience, a fun game. And so that's where I kind of started things out, kind of knowing that I was thinking to later like add the financial aspects around it. And so I guess I'll say learning from that, like I think this is the hardest part of building a game in crypto is because in normal games like it's like, oh yeah, like you make a fun experience, like that's what games are all about. But in crypto, it's a very hard balance between the fun gameplay and like the finance parts that go around it. And the hope obviously is that the finance part is a fun aspect as well that's kind of adding to it. But that balance in between those two is definitely a difficult balance to get. And so from the beginning, that was like what I was trying to do, and kind of finding out that some of that's just like not in your control almost, even as the builder. Like, because in some ways, the tokenomics side, the finance side, it kind of blew up out of hand a little bit, where there was just a lot of hype around it to where like in some ways I couldn't keep the game play experience. I couldn't keep it up with maybe the expectations of all that hype and stuff. And so it's really hard to control that. But that was kind of the balance I was trying to kind of play out from the beginning. Let's see, some other kind of maybe learnings or things. Really, the parts in crypto gaming is like always trying to get the tokenomics incentives in the game to kind of push players to do the things that you want them to do in the game. And that is a cool kind of lever that you have in crypto. And so just trying to use that right. So something that worked fairly well was kind of the whole goal of the game in Stokefire is to just grow your village as big as possible. And so I needed some better incentives to kind of push players to want to do that. And then also at the same time, not make it so that if you're just here all the time, like if you were the earliest village, you're just automatically going to be getting the most rewards and incentivized that way. So I added like these weekly battles that would kind of level the playing field a little bit so that new players could also get boosts and getting more rewards just by even in their first week, just by competing better than their neighbors and like the villages around them basically. And so that was something that I added, and that worked pretty well. So then it was kind of like this competition between you and your neighbors. So the idea that at any level, wherever you were, however big your village was, you could still kind of win in a week's period and get more rewards and stuff. And so that incentive was pretty important. Once I added that, I did kind of see like people kind of re-engage. Like it was kind of like this fun thing, like this like leaderboard of just your 10 neighbors. Cause before it was like this global leaderboard. So it was like if you weren't in the top 10, 50 people, then you're like, well, I have no chance to get there, right? But now it's like you're competing against the people right around you. And so I did see kind of an excitement and engagement around that, where people just really wanted to win, in their neighborhood out of their 10 neighbors. So that was cool to see.
But one thing over here, which actually around that time I found really cool, is how the communication layer, like in this case, like Farcaster, was also integrated with that, like really sharing those things and those battles and competitions that were happening at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that was cool to see for sure.
One thing that has popped up over here, especially when talking about the different audiences and getting the investors and the traders, for Stokefire specifically, from what I understand, is like you kind of have two overlapping audiences, but at the same time, they're kind of different audiences. Like you have the players and you have the investors. Or have you noticed a lot of merging of those audiences in the case of Stokefire? Because I know a lot of projects, it happens that they have to market to two audiences at the same time.
Yeah. So this is another, I guess, struggle. Like I saw the struggle in Stokefire, and I think all of crypto gaming sees this as well, is that so there's definitely, yeah, it's basically you have these two audiences, and in some ways they're kind of very against each other. Like the true gamers don't really like any financialization of anything, and then they just, they're just playing for fun. They don't want to have to think about money. Like that kind of ruins the fun for them. Where then you have your like crypto speculators and stuff, and in some ways they don't really care about the game part. Like they just are like, how can I make money from this thing? And that is the fun for them. Like that's kind of fun for them. I definitely saw in Stokefire there's kind of like a middle player. There is someone that's kind of is in the middle of that gap a little bit. And these were the players for Stokefire that they really liked the strategy of the game, and they really just like enjoyed kind of playing the game. And I saw Stokefire players, they would tell me like, hey, I know I'm losing money playing this right now, but I just want to keep playing it. I just want to see my village get bigger. Like I'm enjoying that part of it. So there was definitely a group of people that were really kind of in between, and they just liked the game, but they're also like crypto users. So they kind of understand the crypto aspects of things. I think that group of people, gamers that really just like playing a game, but then also they understand crypto. They think that part's interesting as well. So I think it's just hard to find that many users that are that kind of perfect middle. It's kind of like you're either on the right side or the left side. So that's kind of another struggle of like, how do you make everybody happy when in crypto gaming, you're like building kind of this like very big kind of wide experience that not many people are used to. So it's definitely an interesting problem. And I always felt like I was balancing in between that when I was adding Stokefire features of like, okay, who am I building this for? Like, is this for the financial side of things, the incentives part, or is this like just for the game part? And then always kind of like keep a balance of making something kind of in the middle there.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense because you have all these different parts that are interacting with each other all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
especially as a solo founder, you have to figure out sort of tools to approach every challenge in those different aspects, whether that be the financial side or more on the user side and the experience side or something else, and
Yeah.
having the interaction between all those.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it's an interesting problem, and again, I think someone's going to crack it. Like it might just be wrong timing, or users kind of getting used to some of these ideas of like financializing things and enjoying it. But yeah, I think it's obviously a hard problem to crack. And maybe just a different timing, someone else, I think someone will be able to do it in a successful way at some point.
One question actually that popped up right now on that topic is, do you think because so you have these different audiences that each on-chain game practically kind of has to approach, and then there's the middle. But
Mhm.
what do you think actually people care about that will not only use the product, but also go and invite others to use the product? Because are founders even asking the right questions in the first place? And are we bridging the gap that actually makes a difference?
What I've seen is the sticky users, basically the players that really enjoy a game, they end up like finding a community within that game and like making friends basically with the community, and that's kind of what makes them want to stay around. Like we had a lot of players in Stokefire that they kind of got onboarded to Farcaster because of Stokefire. They'd never heard of Farcaster before, but Farcaster is obviously like the kind of the social community layer where people are interacting and having fun together, making friends and stuff. So it was cool to see people kind of get introduced to Farcaster, and then I saw the players that kind of were interacting more there in Farcaster about Stokefire, they were the ones that kind of ended up staying around longer and just actually like making friends with other players, and they kind of enjoyed it more because it was like this social aspect kind of to it as well. And so I don't know, like I guess like that could be a focus, for any kind of crypto game, is to kind of focus like how can you make basically a community of people that are enjoying the experience together and like making friends with each other.
Well, but that makes perfect sense, especially right now with a layer like Firecaster, where projects can essentially use that layer instead of building an entire community on a different platform and then trying to go through all the hurdles there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It makes that
One
part easy.
One other question on this point is like, what are some other things maybe so far we haven't discussed that founders should consider, especially when approaching to get more users and then retain those users?
I really think the focus can be on just like making a good game, making an experience that people enjoy. You know, it's kind of like the build it and they will come. It's not, it's not that far down that way. I think that definitely helps though in crypto because, if you have your users all enjoying an experience and they're kind of incentivized together to help it do well, then in some ways it kind of takes a life of its own a little bit. And I definitely saw that with Stokefire, whereas like a lot of the growth, like, I don't know, I was just building stuff, making stuff. I can't really say like why things happened the way they did. Like, I don't know. Like, it just kind of blew up. And then like people on Twitter that like I've never met, like, like the big like crypto accounts of like ETH Bowl people that are like known on Twitter just started like posting about Stokefire. I'm like, I have no idea how they found this. I have no idea they've never talked to me. Well, then after that, they started like DMing me, but it's like I had nothing to do with that. Like it just kind of happened on its own, which is cool to see. But in some ways, it kind of shows that I can't really replicate maybe what just happened. Like I don't really know how it happened. So I guess that's like the cool part of crypto that is kind of a superpower. But then again, it's like how long can that last? Like, is that a short term kind of thing? So yeah, that definitely was something that kind of felt like was out of my control. Like some of the hype that kind of built around the game, really around like this last Christmas. I'd say another thing that like builders can do though, that I tried to do, and I think it's really helpful, is basically just like being very transparent and public about what you're doing. And I tried to do that all the time, like, just with posting on Twitter and Farcaster, making like little video updates. I think that if people kind of see that you as the builder are like actively trying to like make this thing better and like make progress, like I just think people appreciate that, and it more so makes them want to get involved and like try it out. So I don't think that's why like all the hype came, but I think that helps at least, is like people like to feel like they know who the builder is. And obviously like in crypto there's a lot of like trust issues basically, like it's just with like scams and like people losing money over things like that. And so if you as the builder let people know that like you're trying to do this like with integrity and make something valuable, I think more people are willing to kind of trust you and like give what you're building a try.
Yeah. Pretty much as you said, like a lot of the trust issues, it adds another layer to everything that is happening as well. Plus, it adds the story layer, which actually personally I believe is a very big thing, especially for bootstrap projects, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
since right now they're like copying a project or like recreating something with AI has become like is gonna become more and more common, I would assume.
Yep.
And the other aspect is like if you have the story aspect, no one can really take away the story. No one can really take away the integrity. And it's I believe it's an awesome point in the first place that more builders should actually share a bit more about the progress they're doing, and that contributes to the entire narrative of the project.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it's a good thing. Like I know for myself as a crypto investor and stuff, that's what I try to find also like in builders, people that are kind of sharing publicly about what they're doing and people that I can kind of relate to. Like those are the projects that I like to get involved in. What we haven't touched on or covered yet, the hype kind of stuff that we had at one point. During that time, I was kind of thinking about like, okay, how can I, like, hype is a good thing and a bad thing kind of, right? Like it's kind of, it can be a bad thing in that like your project's maybe not ready for it or maybe you weren't prepared for it. And just like figuring out how to handle that. It's a good thing in that like, okay, it's like something you didn't expect and maybe there's a way you can leverage that to continue to grow the project and make it even better. And so, I mean, that's what I tried to do. I don't know if I was successful in that, but yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of an interesting thing, like hype. Like, how do you handle having a lot of attention on what you're building at a point in time, and how can you make the most of it? It definitely feels like it adds a lot of pressure, like to you as the builder. And so it's just like, how do you handle that in the right way and then make the most of it? It's just like an interesting concept. So I think that is something as a builder in crypto, I guess you should think about is just like, what are you going to do if something kind of blows up in a way you didn't expect? How are you going to handle it? How are you going to be ready for it, prepared for it? I think it's just something good to think about beforehand before it actually happens. And because you never know, like, you can't really control it. And so maybe it will come for your project, maybe it won't. So just kind of being ready for it, I guess.
Yeah, but hyping crypto can be the results of what in the traditional world would be marketing or advertising. But that hype can bring a lot of users. And one thing that I've seen across projects that have actually had successful launches and sustained after that is having that second part, that retention part, figured out. Like,
Yeah.
how do you at least keep people inside or get that feedback, or what are the next steps? Because especially in today's, like, how much noise there is out there, and just how many things are launching or how much content is getting out there, is like, you get your piece, but what do you do with it is actually the important aspect.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing that comes to mind is something that I really enjoyed about building Stokefire is that basically I was getting to build the game that I thought would be fun for myself. So, kind of like as a builder, if you get to build whatever, like obviously you need to make something that other people enjoy and like, but I think kind of like dial in on the intersection between what you think a lot of people enjoy as well as something that you really enjoy. And so that was just like really fun for me because I was getting to build like a game that I wanted to see in crypto that I thought would be really interesting and an interesting experience. And that's like a very motivating thing. And so I think because obviously if you're going to build something, like you have to persist in like making it happen, building a lot, trying to make a lot of progress on it. And so if you can find something that you're really excited about and interested in building, there's more chance that you're going to last.
And I'm curious on that point, just to dive a bit deeper into it. At what point of the journey actually those motivations started changing?
Yeah, I mean, I was working on Stokefire every day, lots of hours. It was like a labor of love kind of thing. It kind of felt like no matter what I did, it was the trend of less players, less people interested, kind of continued. Then that's kind of like a demotivating thing because you're like, well, I'm trying all these things and they're not working. This doesn't seem to be making sense anymore. And actually, I remember it was soon after. So we made like the frame for the game that was a part of Farcaster, and we got a nice boost from that. We saw maybe it might have been around 500 ish, somewhere from 500 to 1,000 new players. So that was like a really good like boost at that point. Um, but then maybe like after like a week or two, you could already start to see like a lot of those players weren't really sticking around and the retention wasn't really there, kind of like you're talking about. And so could kind of just see that like the activity was kind of gonna continue to go downwards, even though we just did this big kind of effort to launch the mini app, and kind of seeing that that wasn't going to really make a huge impact longer term was kind of a very demotivating thing to see. Like, okay, I don't think this is going to work. So yeah, that was kind of the point where I could kind of see like there was some issues. So
Have you
mhm.
tried for Stokefire, especially because I know you've been sharing your journey? Have you tried so far bridging audiences from different spaces that might be interested in the project, from tech or non-crypto audiences to bringing people on chain and getting them as the first point of contact being the project? I've seen some projects do something similar like that as well to get a new influx of users and traders.
Yeah. So I mean, I had attempted to do some things like that, mainly through like content, like trying to like make like shorts on TikTok and YouTube, trying to like kind of, and in those videos a lot of time I was like trying to like not even talk about the crypto parts of the game, like kind of like trying to focus on like the gameplay aspects of the game. And I think that is a strategy that could work. But again, I don't know kind of what I saw. I wasn't sure if I'd actually be able to retain those kind of players very long term. But I think a strategy like that could make a lot of sense. It's kind of like the idea of like I don't know, just like gameplay and like a fun experience in the front, and then like crypto rails behind the scenes a little bit more, where it's maybe not as a necessity for the game, but it's like something that part of the user base can use maybe. I think something like that could maybe work. So yeah, I'd kind of played around with that a little bit, but didn't see much success from it. I think that would take a lot of effort or time to kind of, I guess, like get like content and an audience in that kind of realm that's different from the crypto realm, that to see that grow, like, could probably just take some time.
I'm just gonna try and draw some parallels here. Recently, have been some rumors also that like AAA games are gonna start implementing blockchain, or like
Hmm.
GTA 6 will have blockchain and
Really, I've not
for
seen
the
that.
entire economy. Yeah, it was like last week. I've seen it on quite a few sites, but I think that could have pretty interesting impacts actually on the on-chain gaming space, if it's true. If we ever get
Yeah,
to see the game.
yeah, and then I think maybe I did see some rumor about, maybe it was like Pokemon or something with Nintendo having, yeah, maybe some crypto aspects. I'm not sure. Um, Yeah, I mean, I think something like that could be interesting. And maybe if it's more like they're just using crypto or even like NFTs for like the things that you get in the game, where again, that would be like a scenario where majority of the players are probably not going to touch it, but like the people that are wanting to can. And like, if it's just like NFTs or something like that, like I could see it not being, in some ways it's not as financialized, where there's not like, I don't know, the token or something where a lot of the gameplay is like built around that. But I think in some ways that's probably makes the most sense for games, especially like right now where we're at, where it's like in some ways, like especially a AAA game, like probably should mostly just be the game, and then there's like this little layer of some crypto kind of things that people can do if they want to.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like it can be even a marketplace or something. I also heard
Right.
like Valve, I think, and Steam are thinking of implementing something similar.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see what they do.
Really excited, honestly, to see where the landscape of smaller games, especially games with unique mechanics like Stokefire, is gonna head. Because even looking at the mainstream, there's a growing interest that towards niche games other than the AAA games, and
Yeah,
more
yeah,
unique stories and more unique. Although it's still, I would say, like I would agree with what I believe you said earlier. Like it's still, it might be very early on in the process, or
yeah,
it might be just in time.
yeah, maybe. So I got to hear from you. I was trying to remember. I remember this was like multiple months ago, but I remember at some point you were playing Stokefire and you posted something about like the fire burning out at, like within like a minute, or I don't know. You were like really close to it and you were kind of upset about it. I remember in the post. Can you take us back to what happened there?
Hmm. What I believe happened at that point, I would love to actually find the post as well, is I was running the village for like weeks and I finally got to like 40th or 50th place. You were
Oh,
dominating the leaderboard back
oh
then.
yeah. At the time, yeah,
It's in the beginning of the game.
yeah, yep.
And I had an alarm. I had multiple alarms to stoke the fire actually throughout the day, but somehow I missed one. And the
Oh,
fire went out. I was like, oh,
yeah. And
and you're,
that was back before you could revive your fire. So it's like
yeah,
that was another thing I added because in some ways it was kind of harsh. Like some people liked the harshness of it, where it's like if you messed up, you just had to start all over. Like there was no second chances. And that was what you had, where it's like you had to start all over. But then, so later I added being able to revive the fire so that you'd have to pay a little bit more in fire tokens, but then you could get your village back, which for me, like in some ways, well, I think it was a good thing to add, but I kind of liked the harshness of like it kind of made people a little bit more emotional about messing up, which was in some ways kind of fun because you'd every few days you'd see somebody kind of like posting about how they're like messed up and let their fire go out and they're sad about it.
but honestly, that was one of the things that got me really in the game to check the fire and stoke the fire in the beginning.
Yeah.
And the other thing, like thinking about it right now, was the pretty much how you structured the game and the mechanics, that it doesn't require much time. And
Yep.
like literally anyways, I would be on my computer or would be working something, but then would just check it for 2 minutes, stoke the fire, gather some wood or some food, and just leave it.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that was an interesting part, because it wasn't like this game that actually requires you to spend a lot of time to maintain something, and it
Yeah.
really like what I would call like lifestyle game or something. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
term
Yeah.
or not.
It's like an idle. I think they call it like an idle game, and
Idle game.
that was definitely kind of my goal with it as well. Especially kind of knowing that a lot of crypto users and like people that even play crypto games, they don't really have time to necessarily like play a game for multiple hours in a day. And so, yeah, I wanted to make a game where it's like it was just a slowly over time thing that you could check on it once a day, twice a day, and but still have like some strategy around it where you could be making decisions in your mind, thinking about it, but it's not like you're having to watch it all day. So yeah, that was kind of something that I thought made sense for kind of yeah for the like the crypto kind of user.
Have you thought of using more or less like a staking mechanism for maintaining the villages?
Yeah, so I was thinking through some different ideas like that that would also kind of bring in some of the economics of the token into the game. It's like we had a little bit of that where it's like you could speed up your gathering and chopping of resources and to get more resources, and you could only do that every 24 hours. But and this was like an idea I was thinking about doing at some point, just when I thought it would make sense. But I added like farms and ways for you to kind of automate getting resources. And so, kind of the idea was that you would put your villagers in like a farm and a lumber camp, and that would get resources slowly over time and be just more of an automated way to do it. And so, I could have the plan or idea was basically to add also being able to stake some fire with your villagers to get like a little boost. Like maybe it gives you a 15% or 25% boost of more resources if you're staking the fire as well. So yeah, like I think something like that could have been another kind of interesting way to like kind of give a boost to people that are playing in the economics of the game as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's also a thing of the thing is like there's so many different ways, and especially I noticed that in blockchain, there's so many different ways to approaching challenges
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes even us as founders and also building our own things is what actually is really worth focusing on. But then usually comes the question of like, hey, but what are going to be the results? But what about this?
Right, right, and it's in what you're saying is like there's so many options of things you could do, like with tokenomics and stuff and incentives, that you have to be careful that you're not just basically making it really confusing. It's like those crypto projects or DeFi projects that have like tons and tons of pages of docs to like even understand how the thing works, and that kind of just doesn't end up working for many people. So yeah, I feel like you just have to do it in a simple way that works because you don't want to confuse people. And then especially going back to kind of that balance we were talking about, the more things that you add like that, the more that it makes it that the normal kind of like gamer like person that's not used to crypto is just like more and more so just going to be like I'm not going to touch that. Like I have no idea what's going on. It's all this crazy crypto stuff. It then just kind of becomes a crypto game or just for yeah people that know what they're doing in crypto.
Yeah, which makes sense actually. I mean, you're in different words, you're building like a really much stronger mousetrap. Let's using that marketing term where you get to
Mm-hmm.
keep the users in, but at the same time, it becomes much harder for new users to enter and to
Right,
start
right.
using and to move from there.
Right. And actually, that kind of goes back, that reminds me of one of the other strategies I had with Stokefire that I think worked out decently well, which was kind of have this like linear growth path where there's only so many things you could do as a new user. Like all you could do is chop wood and gather food. Like it's pretty simple. There's like two buttons, and you could stoke the fire. But then as you got more villagers, it would kind of unlock kind of the next thing. Like, okay, now you can build lumber camps. And then later on, okay, now you can build farms, and like kind of just adding more and more. And I think that was actually a pretty good strategy that seemed to work for the most part, of just like making it simple, but then kind of adding things as you went, which was one, it was kind of like fun to unlock a new thing and be like, oh, what's this new thing I can do now? But also it helps that learning pattern of like only having to figure out a little bit. And then later on, you're kind of like surprised and like, oh, there's this new thing. I'll figure that out. And so it kind of helps the new user go along.
It was a pleasure actually having this conversation with you, especially like after all this time and this journey that you went to. It's Stokefire. When it comes to Stokefire, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience and that you'd like to share with the people for the future of Stokefire and maybe what is the situation right now, actually?
Yeah. I mean, I'd just say like kind of I'm still at that like level of I'm not making like any huge decisions right now. Like just kind of I'm letting Stokefire just continue out. Like if people can still play it, they can still grow their villages. I'm just not spending a ton of my time currently trying to add tons of things just because like I was saying, like I don't know if that will really have any impact. And so kind of just like watching, seeing what happens. I'm not like going to make any promises. Like maybe in the future, if things start to change in the market or I start to see some like opportunities where it makes sense for me to push more on Stokefire, maybe I'll do something like that at that time. But kind of just sitting back, seeing what happens, and that's kind of where the project is right now. And I'll keep all the servers and stuff online so people can keep playing for right now. So that's kind of the status and kind of the state of the game currently.
And if someone that actually is listening to this would like to share some ideas or with you about Stokefire or would like to help in certain way, like what are the best ways to contact you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the best is just reply to me on Twitter or Farcaster, like any in one of my posts or something, and just kind of share. Like I'm open to hear what people have to say.
Awesome. We're also gonna put those links down in the description. Noah, it was an absolute pleasure having this conversation with you.
Yeah,
And thank you for really walking us through the journey of Stokefire and everything that has been happening over there.
thanks. I appreciate it, Chris. It was enjoyable.